Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Any local people should mute their microphones, just heads up.
Yeah.
Good afternoon again, everyone. This is the March 2025 Board of Directors meeting for Extera Public Schools. First item on the agenda to establish quorum is the recording of attendance and guests. Ms. Paquette,
Chairman Bullock,
present.
Ms. Newbern is remote today. Mr. Wheat is here. Ms. Bunke? Here. Ms. Alvarado? Here. Ms. Haran?
Present.
Mr. Griffin?
Present.
Ms. Hannon? Here. Ms. Salas? Here. Ms. Day? Present. Mr. Morgan?
Present.
Thank you. Quorum is met.
Quorum is met. Now I will officially call the meeting to order. And the next item on the agenda is the approval of the February board minutes. Hoping that every board members have reviewed it, and I will entertain a motion to act on those minutes. Approve minutes.
I move to approve the February board meeting minutes. I second that.
It's moved and properly second, and because we have a board member who is remote, will take the roll call for to act on these minutes.
Mr. Bullock?
Yes.
Mr. Wheat?
Yes.
Ms. Bunke?
Yes.
Ms. Newbern? Abstain. Ms. Alvarado?
Here.
Thank you.
Been approved. Thank you. The next item is public comments. Mr. Morgan, do we have any visitors, guests who have signed up to give public comments?
No sign up via web or the on-site sign up list.
All right, thank you. We'll move forward into the next section, financials. And for that, I have Brian Griffin from XF to share the February financials. And we're glad that he's in person today. Good to see you.
Yay.
Thank you, everyone. Am I able to share my screen? Okay. Today we have our February financial presentation. That's big enough for everyone to see. So we have financials through February 2025, which includes attendance information through month 5. And as of month 5, we had 348 students enrolled across both campuses. We are currently 6 students below budget, and that is what's driving our lower LCFF funding for this school year of 54,000 projected. And other variances of note, for the federal side, we have about 60,000 more in our federal revenue due to the timing of one-time funding. Other than that, we've held pretty constant in our revenue. On the expense side, we have on a monthly basis realized savings across salaries and benefits. And our big operating expense variance has to do with realizing the total cost of the Gauge project expenses for this fiscal year. So when you look at our forecast, our net income is a net loss of $2.3 million. However, when you add back those project expenses, our operating net income for this school year is just under $282,000. Which is a good, healthy net income. Looking at cash, we ended the month of February with 8.6 million in the bank. And we're projecting a year-end cash of 5.7 million as we continue to spend down our one-time funds and we prepare ourselves for slower revenue coming in under this new administration. And so I just wanted to point out our cash projection for year end is a conservative one. It can be impacted by various factors. One out of our control is the timing of funding from the different funding sources that we have. One in our control is our payables at year end. So I have forecasted very timely payment to our vendors. However, that's sometimes not always the case. We have vendors that are notorious for submitting invoices 1 month or 2 months late. So I anticipate that cash variance, that cash at year end will continue to get a little bit healthier as we get closer to year end. Looking at the individual schools, I just wanted to point out quickly, at Xterra Public School number 1, we had 227 students at the end of month 5, coming at a 93.5% average daily attendance, which is almost on track with our 94% budgeted 88%. Net income, operating net income for this campus is $150,000 after adding back the gauge expenses. Cash associated with this site is 4.3 million and year-end cash of $3 million. Xterra Public School number 2. We have been over our enrollment target after we revised our budget down. However, after month 5, we almost came back down to the 120 that was budgeted. So we're at 121 through month 5. But our attendance rate is 94.8%, which is slightly better than what we budgeted for. So these students are coming at a rate that is better than expected, which is always an accomplishment. It's usually very difficult with the elementary schools. When kiddos have the sniffles, they usually stay home. But our population is coming at the rate we've expected or a little bit better at this campus. Our net income, after adding back the project expenses for EPS number 2, is projected to be $132,000 for this school year. Cash at the end of February was 4.2 million at EPS 2, and we're projecting year-end cash of 2.6 million. So again, conservative cash estimates. Let's make sure that that doesn't change in the wrong direction. I anticipate it to be healthier as we get closer to year end. That concludes, I guess I can say the home office. The home office is designed to break even, and we are projecting a break-even budget at the home office for this school year. Any questions related to February? In this packet, there's also the notes, income statement, balance sheet, and check register for everyone's review. And again, or as always, if anyone has a question around a disbursement for the month, I'd be happy to do my best to answer that now or later if anyone has a question after me.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Any questions from the board? Then I will entertain a motion to receive the February financials.
Second.
Need a motion.
I would motion to receive.
Second.
Move in second, and we will take the roll call.
Mr. Bullock,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Ms. Bunker,
Yes.
Ms. Alvarado,
Yes.
and a note for the board, Ms. Newburn will be offline until around 1, so she's noted as absent at this time.
So based on motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Now we will have budget update from Mr. Kent.
Yes, Chairman Bullock, members of the board, thank you so much, as always, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. We are, as always, closely monitoring both federal and state activity, which I look forward to highlighting some, shall I call them, non-updates for you today on that front. And as a reminder, we are in the middle of development season on the budget. So we look to bring the draft and first preview for public hearing to you in May. But we will not hear back definitively from the governor until May, and likely not before our meeting. So we will remain in monitor mode from the state. I want to highlight a few important factors that we're closely monitoring. One, as we discussed last month, is the impact of enrollment. Since we are funded per pupil, and since most of our students qualify for at least one of the boosters that we get from the local control funding formula model, being low income or English learner. In our case, we do not really carry a foster youth roster. A very small population of student falls into that category for us, but because of the additional funds received for low income and English learner, as well as the Title I and Title III funding, the per pupil funding is a higher than average number for us than it is for other school districts, for example, that do not have unduplicated pupil count students to the level that we have. Also, as we noted, from before the pandemic to today, we have experienced significant student enrollment loss between 55 and 69%. So we are closely monitoring our student retention and recruitment projections and strategies. We'll be talking more about those today and with leadership throughout the spring. The second highlight that I want to draw your attention to is what I would label as an egregious rate increase from Los Angeles Unified School District. They have increased the cost for Prop 39 by 21%, and they charge us per square foot. So as we're talking about the budget today, you'll see an increase that is more than 21%, and that is because we have yet to negotiate our give backs. We do not take our full allocation of shared use space in venues such as the auditorium, because that's a lot of square feet, and they charge us per square foot per day for those spaces. So the budget draft as it sits today actually has a much higher figure on this line, but the contractual increase is 21%. And so even after we negotiate the give backs, we will still incur a significant increase. This highlights both the superintendent's desire for charter schools to move to private sites and also our desire, right, to move to a private facility and no longer rent with Prop 39. So while it is still arguably cost effective, this egregious rate increase draws that into question. And then of course, we do not qualify for SB 740 for Prop 39 leases as well. So we're almost approaching what would become a plateau, right, on affordability and feasibility. And one might argue that that's intentional. Additionally, we have been discussing, and you began the discussion last month around a need to reallocate both staff and budget line items towards recruiting efforts. You'll be looking today at a staffing resolution to deploy and change staff foci, as well as to make some staffing allocation changes that we'll talk about. And then last week, the Trump administration did reduce Department of Education employees by 50% in an unprecedented reduction of force at the federal level. We do not yet know what implications that may have, and the secretary, newly sworn in Secretary of Education, is promising funding redeployment not being impacted by people. But people have to approve the funds and sign the checks and disperse and follow up and do the audits. So this still remains unclear. I'll highlight why that matters to us. So today you are looking at a reallocation, and while the purpose of the reallocation was not explicitly to reduce the budget, I did want to highlight for you here that it is a cost savings, though the primary goal was to increase recruitment knowledge and recruitment staff. We wanted to maintain the size of staffing, meaning the total headcount of staffing, so that it is budget neutral or less. We did not want to increase staffing in the budget. And then also to reposition teammates in an effort to minimize layoffs as much as possible. And I'll pause here to acknowledge that we made difficult choices over the last 2 years, and especially last year, around reduction in force and layoffs. The news is plagued with school districts all around us now making those similar same choices that this board was brave enough to make last year. And so I commend you for that early action. Our friends in Pasadena, you know, for example, even the LA County Office of Education just passed out RIF letters on Friday. So it's really hitting every district hard. And we are really looking at a minimal amount of reduction in force and more so just reutilization. So by dissolving the top positions here and redeploying and reallocating, we are saving, you know, between $87,000 to $100,000 a year over the next 6 months to 12 months as we continue to phase out the advertising consulting element. And so while that wasn't the goal, it is certainly appreciated as we are working to respond to an all-time, in our generation, low of birth rates, not just in LA County, but nationwide, and the impacts of gentrification in this community explicitly. So this is just a sneak peek at the earliest draft. So I would emphasize and highlight the word projected for the chart that is on the right. And while it looks similar, I would highlight to you the much bigger piece of the pie for Prop 39, which is that lighter blue color. And we do have a couple of other increases that are really being supported through our Expanded Learning Opportunity Program. So they're a budget neutral on our general fund, but you'll see some curriculum increases there. For example, air reading has been not only good for kids and successful this year, but very popular with parents and teachers, and surprisingly even popular with students who are coming in early. We're expanding that program next year and looking for a similar math element, all designed to provide that targeted, personalized, tailored intervention. I also want to highlight and celebrate a multi-year effort to decrease special education additional costs. That is the darker green piece of the pie. So just looking across the two pieces of the pie, I commend our special education teachers for paying very close attention to exactly what students want and need in their IEP meetings, and their fearless leader, Ms. Hannon, for educating parents on least restrictive environment and trying to right size that budget. We also will no longer have a student at MPS, which is certainly helpful. While we always want to provide a non-public school environment for any student in need, it is a significant cost incursion that is not supported through the SELPA. So our goal for this year was to be budget neutral, especially since the anticipated COLA at best will be just a little over 2%. And this comes nowhere close to responding to the inflationary quotes that we're getting back from vendors or the 21% cost increase that we just saw for Prop 39. So the leadership team and school principals are working very hard on a budget neutral model, if not a budget savings model. And you'll see here that with projected step and column increases, and in part because of the proposed reorganization, staff year over change is less than 1%. Less than 1% change for staff. You'll see cost savings in curriculum, professional development, and special ed, as we highlighted, especially in special ed. And this is where the Prop 39 rent is still inflated right now because we have not negotiated and cannot negotiate those givebacks until the month of May. So that remains to be seen on how close to driving down to get us right to that 21%. Because we did negotiate significant givebacks this last year and have comfortably been able to operate. Some of our other tech and operating cost increases are through our ELOP program, as I highlighted. And then we continue to fully maximize the food service funding to have a budget neutral free breakfast, lunch, and snack for students daily. And our after school program through the ACES grant that we receive, and our camps are funded through ELOP, as well as our larger overnight field trips. So I'm grateful to my team's line by line review, and they'll continue that work over the next 30 days or so. In terms of the impact of the actions of the federal government and what's at risk and what's unknown, we do receive a not insignificant amount of title funds, as you can see here, to the tune of more than $460 or so $1,000 a year. These are per pupil allocations per the percent and number of our students that qualify, and the enrollment calculator is always a year in delay on these title funds. And just as a reminder, Title I is highlighted to help close the achievement gap for low-income students. Title II is for professional development and learning for teachers. Title III is for English learner supports, and Title IV is a more generous open fund that we generally use to catch all some of the curriculum and technology pieces that are not otherwise covered. And then IDEA is federally allocated special education dollars. In an ideal, perfect model that every school district strives for and no one achieves, is that we would receive the exact amount of IDEA and AB 602 state special education funding as we needed to pay these salaries of our psychologists and our SPED teachers and our instructional aides. That would be ideal. And while encroachment is, somewhat of a dirty word in SPED budget world, certainly the special education costs always far exceed the federal and state dollars received. So having closures at the Department of Education, other upheavals, refusals to disperse federal funds and agencies across the country and globally, we need this money, and we won't know for some time. Right now, we're building a budget model that includes it, but it's important to highlight.
So maybe good to have some scenario planning budgets as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Worst case scenario.
Sure.
But if I were a betting person, I would not forecast our receiving IDEA.
Yeah,
Or
received
be
and
very
understood.
reduced.
Received and understood. Thank you.
Are there any, I know that with what we're dealing with in the federal government, are there any communications that kind of tell us what to anticipate or what to expect, or it's kind of, they told us this is what's gonna happen and then it's kind of silent? what kind of communications are happening?
We have received one formal communication by way of a dear colleague letter threatening to revoke funds from any school entity you know, that does not support the Trump administration's policies and platforms. Though many feel that was more targeted for universities, it's certainly a wondering. And then during her confirmation hearing, Secretary McMahon pledged to continue to support and fund the educational needs of our most at-risk and vulnerable students, which is what these 5 pockets of monies. Since she has taken office, we have not received formal official pledges or communication, but she did pledge that publicly, though we know there is not often a connection between what is said at confirmation hearings and what happens in reality.
Really? I'm sorry, that was.
Yeah, great questions, Boontab, and I look daily and will continue to watch for. Okay, thank you.
I have a question on the Prop 39 rent increase. Is this something that's across the board with other charter schools, 39%, or is this
Well, ours won't be 39% in the end, so let me go back to that.
whatever it is?
Yeah,
Is there-
21%.
Is there some type of,
It's
collective-
district-wide.
is there some type of collective pushback, CCSA, some, because this is outrageous.
Yes, we did, with the support of YMC, as did, you know, all of our colleagues in the collective respond with grievance to the rate increase. Though I have no indication or belief that LAUSD will revise down when they, because what we've received so far is the preliminary offer. And so that's where you'll see the preliminary offer for last year was 455. We negotiated down because of give backs to 386. Our preliminary offer today is 540. So we'll negotiate down. It will not be
Right.
40% at the end of the day. It'll be
Significantly more though than 24, 25.
absolutely, absolutely. And so through cost savings in other areas, we were able to keep a budget neutral Schedule D. But that is a significant cut that the leadership team and principals plan for. We will receive our final offer in response to our legal grievance May 1st. So still some time away. And then we can negotiate the give backs.
Any other questions? Sorry.
I guess I'll just say LAUSD's justification for the 21% increase was inflation. Which is not 21%.
What about the nutritional programs? Is there any, because I think you were mentioning at the beginning that we were speaking about what.
There are 2 other factors that do not directly reflect in our budget but impact our families. So the nutrition program, and Governor Newsom is gearing up to support the nutrition program in the absence of continued federal support of the nutrition program, because the state legislature passed a free universal meals program a 1.5 years ago. Whereas we were already at a universal meals because we had 100% students qualifying for free and reduced lunch. Secondarily, as we've discussed, the majority of our students receive Medicaid as their health care. And the current continuing resolution, which one could argue was not a continuing resolution that Congress passed Friday night, does tee up a massive reduction in funds for Medicare. In response over the weekend, Governor Newsom did request a more than $1 billion adjustment from the California State Legislature to continue to support Cal Kids the California extension of Medicare. But this is where I am hedging when I say, I think we're gonna see serious differences by the time the governor's May revision is released. And will that COLA evaporate to handle both the impacts of the fires and now the impacts on Medicaid? Medi-Cal.
Thank you. That's helpful.
All right. Let's move to the next item, section, that is governance.
Chairman, both members of the board, I'm pleased to have our lead principal, Ms. Allen, and present the test preparations at all three of our schools. And as she begins, I just want to express gratitude to Ms. Ortiz and Ms. Villamar, who worked diligently on the elementary test prep plans. And thank you to Ms. Salas for presenting on their behalf so that we could adequately cover the schools today for you, instead of having all three of them come today to present.
Thank you for having me here today. Happy to present this for our team. It was a labor of love from all of us, trying to put something together. And these 2 points here are kind of like the main reason as to why we wanted to really help out our students. We wanted them to feel good about the testing season. We wanted them to feel prepared, knowing the types of questions they're going to receive, reviewing those specific strategies that are going to make them successful. And then just increasing that rigor and engagement just across the board. And one thing for myself at middle school is really pushing this culture of students taking ownership and accountability of the effort and the work that they do. So that is at the heart of this test prep program. Go to the next slide. You guys have been through the data multiple times with Ms. Haran. So what we did is that we worked with our teachers. We presented this again to our families and our students. Our students did additional reflections with their teachers. Our instructional coach, Dr. Mohammed, was one of the leaders of that project and really supporting teachers in having the resources necessary, as well as their own printed copy of their student results, to just think about how they're doing and how they've done over the span of years, and where they could give an extra effort, or what is something that they can do to improve their score. And this was also something we asked teachers to present with parents, to parents at their conferences that happened last week. You know, just again, to share with their families where their plans are for this upcoming test season. And I'll share one just because it's been shared a couple of times. The last couple of spaces at middle school, we had a student in their conference with their parent, and it was time to share what his goal was, or why he's working so hard. And he said, "Oh, I just want to make my mom proud." And like that just set off the tears. And I think the parent, the kid, then the teachers were starting to cry. And I think that's a lot of what has been missing here, is for that the student accountability of like, yes, I'm working hard and these are the results that I have, or maybe I haven't put as much effort into the work, and that speaks for where I'm currently at. But also to have the parents understand that, yes, we are tracking them, and yes, this is meaningful for both them and obviously for the school as well. So for the elementary plan, this is a little different than what it looks like at middle school, but from February 18th up until April 28th, that is a timeline for their plan. So what they did is that the administrators, Ms. Villamar, Ms. Ortiz, worked with Dr. Mohammed to really analyze the data and target those key areas of focus. They reviewed it with their teachers to make sure that it made sense for that TK through 5 span. Not just for SBAC, but also MAP, because MAP is also upcoming for our K2 students. So from there, part of their plan was to work with the teachers to designate when this specific instruction will occur. So they identified particular blocks of time, the writing, math groups, SEL, their flex time, phonics, accelerated groups. So those are all identified blocks that they were able to do this work that they needed to do. The 3rd through 5th grade teachers in particular, I did a screenshot of what their plan looks like. They had to create a plan for both math and for ELA. And on that, they went into the more specifics of the calendar and how all of those target standards are going to be taught, reviewed, a system for assessing their progress with those given standards. And that's something that the administrators are also keeping a pulse on, as well as the coach. And at middle school, I said it looks very different. We still went through the same process, working with, Dr. Muhammad, our instructional coach, and teachers to see what makes the most sense. Where are the largest gaps for us? What do we really need to target? And what we did from there, I don't know how we did it, but we asked families to sign up for either a 0 period or a 7 period, meaning that their child had to get to school earlier or they had to stay a half an hour later. Because with our middle school schedule, there really wasn't that block of time that can be dedicated. Teachers still had the option to dedicate their own class time to working on, subject specific things, but we wanted something to be a little bit more planned out at our middle school level. And so at the same time that we were asking families to sign up, we asked our teachers, would you like to come in at 7:30 and work with a group of students, or maybe stay after school and work with a group of students? And fortunately enough, our middle school team was really excited about dedicating this time for our students because we know it's much needed. And so we have a group of teachers that do come in the morning after school, including myself. And so that was, like I said, kids signed up, parents signed up, teachers signed up. So I was like, okay, that's great. And then the next piece of that was just creating the work. And so we can go to the next slide. We went through a bunch of different resources that made sense for kind of this test prep. So we found this particular workbook that went through a lot of the major learnings that we just needed to make sure students had time to just review and practice. And once we got this book, again, Dr. Muhammad and I sat down and we're like, okay, let's look at all the chapters, all the subjects that are being covered. What do we need to target first? And then what can we kind of hold off to the end? And from that came our 10-week plan. We are working for 10 weeks with these kids. And there's some photos of Miss Tate working with a 6th grade group, and then Mrs. Grimes with a 5th grade group. Some of the groups are smaller than others. We have a lot more kids participating after school because a lot of them are already there. And so it's been great partnering with the after school program because they are like, well, our kid isn't in air reading in the morning. Let's send them to you. Or after school, they're not doing anything. I'm going to send them to you. So it's been really good to get more students involved in that project as well. So in summary, at elementary, again, Ms. Villamar, Ms. Ortiz are monitoring the implementation of their plan, as well as with Dr. Muhammad. Teachers in TK through 2nd, again, are really targeting the skills that the students need to be successful during their MAP testing. And, they will keep in touch to see if there's any additional coaching or if they need a pivot because something isn't working. So that's at the elementary level. For middle school, we have 54% of our students that signed up. for before after school. And that's really huge considering that participation in middle school has been a struggle. Yes, we did tie in an incentive, but I think the fact that they're showing up is really important. And it's been a really positive experience for the teachers as well as the students. And I'll just say for myself, with the kids that I have, yes, it's nice for me to kind of get back into teaching mode with some of the kids. But it's also a good space for them to make their mistakes and be like, oh man, that's what, I forgot that thing about the comma. You know, and they have that space to kind of go over those things, and then they're with a small group of kids. And again, they get to collectively remind themselves of these little things that they forgot, because grammar doesn't get taught as much, the middle school level. So yes, this is a huge academic shift, especially at our middle school levels. So like I said, we do have an incentive for those who complete and participate in our 10-week program. And students who didn't sign up for this, for these sessions are still given the packets on a weekly basis. And so during their study hall or mentor block periods, their teachers will also pull them aside and help them with the same packet. So either way, kids are still getting the same work. They still have to do the packets. And so I will just end on my side for middle school that thank you to the middle school families who like really stepped up and dropped off their kids earlier or having them stay after school. Because I know it's gonna be a huge difference. You know, fingers crossed for our data this year, but I think a lot of it really takes the engagement of our families as well as our students and our teachers to just let these kids know that they can do it and that we believe that they can do it. So yeah, that's our SBAC plan.
Excellent.
Thank
Any
you.
questions from the board before we move on to the academic spotlight?
Thank you.
Bravo.
We'll stay with Principal Salas and Ms. Hannon as we highlight student engagement and enrichment.
Good afternoon, board. I'm happy to be presenting today about our socio-emotional programs with Ms. Salas. We know that supporting the whole child is essential for student learning, and you've just heard about our test prep plan, but now I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've had going on throughout the school year, such as our middle school clubs, student council, and sports opportunities for students. Next slide, please. So there are so many benefits to offering extracurricular activities for students. Some of these benefits are improved academic performance, which we definitely want, higher emotional intelligence, and students have the chance to practice and gain relationship skills. This all helps them have like a stronger sense of belonging at school and really helps our school culture and climate for our students. Next slide, please. So one of the first things that I want to highlight is Lunch Bunch with Carla. So Carla, as most of you guys know, does a lot of different things, but she was our counseling intern this year. And so one of the things that she started was holding a space for students who were new to Xterra or new to middle school. So at the beginning of the school year, they had this structured space with activities, movies, games, where if they were a little timid or shy, they didn't know anyone, they had a place to go with Carla and meet other students. So this has been super popular. The students, you know, we designed it really for the beginning of the year, but the students didn't want to stop coming. So still every day at lunch, Carla has a big group of students.
Wow.
And, you know, they're just hanging out, and now they have a buddy, they have friends. And, you know, now we're halfway through the school year. They have these friends that they've made in there. So it's been a really great space for the kids. Another thing that I wanted to highlight are our student clubs at middle school. We really wanted to give the students a chance to have something that they were really interested in. So we have anime club for students that are really enthusiastic about watching different animes. We have drawing club for those students that, you know, just want to draw. want to become artists. We have a language club for students that are interested in other languages, other cultures. And for our students who want to sing, we do have karaoke club. So again, this is giving the students a chance to be with their peers. All of our clubs are advised by like a staff member. So again, it's giving the students non-classroom time to also bond and build their relationships with the staff as well.
And then with student council, some of you may know this isn't a new thing, but I think rolling it out effectively at middle school was something we really wanted to focus on. Just their leadership skills and giving them opportunities to showcase how they can be leaders amongst their peers and not be as shy or timid. So we did the same thing. We rolled it out. They had an election process. They voted on who they wanted to represent their, not only their class representative, but also for their school as the president, vice president, and secretary. And they run the events. They run the show. You know, I will meet with them and check in with them and ask them what they would like to do. And I just give them the tools and the space to go ahead and do that. So in one of the photo on the left is them writing thank you cards to firefighters, because that's something that they wanted to do. And then on the right, that was for our Valentines. They were really about having Valentine grams out for students. And it was an interesting process because they obviously got to see who wrote one to who. But they were really good about keeping the tea to themselves in that process. But yeah, it's been really nice to see them embrace this leadership role and know that they have that space to do so. Which kind of leads into staff and student sports tournaments. Since last year, I think this was something that I personally enjoyed doing. But with our student council, every now and then they want to host or just sponsor a tournament. And we always try to end it with, of course, staff versus the top team to try to beat us. And so again, even though they may not want to participate around the basketball court, in particular becomes a really hot space where everybody just goes to and no one's out on the yard because they just want to see what's happening with the game and which teacher is, gonna dunk on which student. So yeah, I mean, all about building those connections outside of the classrooms with students have continued to be really successful at the middle school space. And then lastly, extracurricular activities with All Stars. This year, I think, has been one of the best years in partnering with them. Even from all the years that I've been here, I think it's been really nice to see, in particular with the sports, because sports are important to me. Having tournaments, not only just amongst themselves, but getting teams together to compete for soccer, basketball, volleyball, and cheer. And these students love doing it. And I know a lot of our students do play at outside parks and different groups, but I think having sports at your middle school is really a huge part of what we should continue to develop, and having All Stars be the partner to have that, come to life for our middle school students has been really nice to see this year. And you get to see a different side of the students when they know that they're on a team. And, for those of us that played sports in high school, it's like you have that sense of, I got to keep my grades, my behavior together because I'm on a sports team. And we're starting to shift and see some of that from our students, where it's like, I got to keep my grades, I got to behave well. If not, Ms. Salas isn't gonna let me go to the tournament. So it's nice again to see that shift with them as well.
Ms. Salas, I would also highlight that some, though not all of the sports, are also at the elementary
Mhm.
And I was really pleased this fall to see the inclusion of kickball, because not every student has had the opportunity to learn how to play a team sport, but the inclusiveness of kickball, especially, you know, for our elementary students, where really anybody can get out and play, was really lovely.
Yeah, and I know at one of our parent meetings, they were surprised to hear that we had a sports team through All Stars that would actually go and compete against other schools. And then that got them thinking of like, oh, well, if I don't have to pick up my kid, rush them to another park to go play and they can play here, like I might as well just leave them in program. So I think, you know, we need to continue to push the success of these extracurricular activities. One, to continue to build student participation in our after-school program. But two, just like this is such an awesome opportunity for them to practice with their coach on site and then go on a trip to compete against other schools. I think that's really huge. And so, you know, elevating this amongst our parents so they know like you don't need to go to a different park. They can just learn it here.
Is this a student recruitment, like, tool? I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about like ISA, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
they had their program, right, which is, everyone knows about their rugby program. But like, if you had a good soccer program that was like, you know, better than everyone else, it seems like that might be an interesting way to attract more students.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the tactic, at least for this year, at the beginning of the year over summer, to let them know, we're gonna have a flag football team, we're going to have this, and we're gonna have conditioning camp. Because then, yeah, a lot of the middle school students are like, oh, really? And we have a lot of really talented students. They're not in program, but come time, they know a tournament's coming, they're like, I'm gonna join and I'm gonna practice. And it's like, well, you should just stay in program and practice and do all of that with our team. So it is a good like way to get them to come and say like, yes, we're in development. But once we get that going and yeah, we've been winning all these tournaments and yeah, we beat out all these other schools. That's something huge for our athletes to know like, oh, this isn't just a whatever team. It's like, no, we got something, we got some bragging rights too.
It's starting to trickle out there. Our Xterra Eastman Elementary basketball team lost by 1 point in overtime at the tournament last weekend, you know. They've got some ballers on that team for sure. Gave the other schools in that tournament a run for their money, but it's great. Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Ellis. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you. A lot of things I didn't know that I found out today. That's great. I think the next item, I'm sorry, is it's a presentation of the marketing plan.
Turn that over to Ms. Bennett.
Okay, I'll do it. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am very happy to present on behalf of our Xterra advisory group on increasing our school attendance. So we have several goals that we've solidified, as well as some strategies that we've discussed in a number of our meetings. For our objectives, we'd like to increase attendance to 375 by August 2025. So we know currently our student population is 353, so that's an increase by 6%. We'd also like to increase attendance to 425 within 2 years, which is a 17% increase. And in order for us to do that, we are implementing strategies such as develop and foster a school-wide culture that actively supports and promotes student enrollment, also enhance awareness and engagement through community presence and multi-touch point outreach, and lastly, to optimize the admission process for efficiency and experience. So currently we developed a marketing plan with some current advertising tactics, which we'll bring into our, future tactics as well. So currently, and we'll continue to do so, we utilize our social media platforms, which is our Facebook, Instagram, we have a YouTube page. Also, an additional platform is our website. So if, we direct folks to there, they can see our programming, our staffing, and as well as our board makeup. We're also utilizing Google Ads, and that engages social, how we rank also as well in page finds. So are we on the first page? Are we on the second page? So being able to really elevate us in those first, ideally, page, and then if anything, second page. Tabling at local events, this is currently being done, and we'd like to continue that with a much more intentional approach, and really ensuring that the time that we spend at these events has some sort of return on investment. Flyers, which are always the analog way of recruitment and works as well, in addition to these other innovations. And our continuous newsletters. So whether that's to our parents, if we're going to create other types of newsletters. We know word of mouth is a key component of marketing, whether that's through parent referrals or pipeline of schools. So for example, Karen goes to daycares and being able to ensure that we have those touch points in the pipeline. Canvassing by staff and parents, lawn signs, banners, and posters. So really utilizing a very comprehensive marketing plan that also involves media. So any newspapers that our community reads, whether that's in English or Spanish, as well as potentially billboards. And then, I don't know if we still do this, bus benches. So those are ideas that we floated around. Thank you.
So we have our first billboards going live next week, 9 billboards, both right around our schools, and also because for worse more than better, our schools share fence line with freeways. So also in those billboards that are on those freeway exits, and then right around the corner from the schools on the main roads here in Boyle Heights and East Los Angeles, highlighting that this free public charter school is 2 blocks away. And we are running 7 of those 9 billboards in Spanish language with unique QR codes so we can track our responses there. We have also seen now with our new banners and our non-signs, calls and referrals coming in from those. And those are exciting leads for us because they are intentional. Whereas if you're scrolling on Instagram, after you get your 4-year-old to sleep, you might click on an ad, but only be moderately interested. But if you saw your neighbor's yard sign, or you saw the new banner outside the school, and you scan that QR code and call us, that's a pretty hot lead. So we'll continue to monitor those data and be able to report back to the board over the next 60, 90 days. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Marketing engagement is part of the elders' passion. So we're so happy that I have her talent and expertise on the board.
And these are just some examples of our online video ads that are running on social media, highlighting student interviews and parent interviews in those. In English and Spanish. Thank you so much.
We'll now move to the consent items. We have about 5 consent items, unless board member wants to take out one of those for discussion. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the items that are listed in the agenda for approval. I'll entertain a motion to do just that.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second that.
It's been moved in second, and we will, Mr. Casper, roll call.
Thank you so much, Chairman Bullock,
Yes.
Mr. Wheat,
Aye.
Ms. Bunko,
Yes.
Ms. Alvarado,
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, has Miss Newburn signed in yet? I know we're approaching her arrival time. Or Miss Haran, do you see her?
No, I don't see her yet.
Okay, thank you so much.
So with that, the motion carries, for aye votes. Thank you. Next is the advisory team updates. It's the information on the progress. We started this maybe 3-4 months ago. The advisory team made up of members of our board and members of our staff, et cetera, both home office and school level.
Yes, thank you so much. Ms. Alvarado, I'll get us started here for team one since Ms. Newburn is not logged in yet, and then please join in. Team one is focused on Xterra's vision for the future and where we see ourselves 5 and or 10 years from now. And so we're grateful to that full team doing the work. We did a community survey of families and staff who had the same answer, which is great. When that works out, that the top 2 kind of concerns or needs that the community is seeking in a post-COVID current administrative reality is that Xterra fosters and creates a sense of belonging and community for the students where they feel loved, safe, nurtured, wanted in their school space, both by their teachers and staff, but also with each other. And so certainly all of the work that Principal Salas and Shannon were just discussing are pivotal to fostering and maintaining that sense of belonging and community. And the second number 1 wish of parents and teachers was that we continue to focus on that individualized learning and intervention to meet each student where they are and support them so that they can grow and thrive and be not just high school ready or career ready, but future ready. Especially when we're thinking about a TK student or a kinder student, you know, we want to plant the dream college for them, but also you're 4 years old. So let's be future ready, ready for first grade, ready for third grade. Like, what does that future ready mean? And so this team is looking to adapt Xterra's mission statement over the next 30 days or so to really elevate these 2 wishes. And if you look at the current mission statement, it's not a departure, just more clarification of how we're nurturing and fostering that focus. And we want to make sure that we're walking the talk and that what we're driving and saying is our mission and our focus for our families and students is what we deliver on every day and do well. And from a recruitment standpoint, do better than anybody else in the neighborhood or around us, right? So we look forward to bringing that back to the board maybe as soon as the next meeting.
Yeah.
Our next steps would be to continue to get that feedback, to refine just the language of the mission with that focus. And then really our trailblazer traits match this perfectly already. But have we looked at our core values since before COVID, and do they align, and do we have that cohesive sense of purpose and who we are, and threading that needle between this is what we believed when we founded in 2011 and how we serve the community, and this is how we're doing that today. Not because Xterra has changed, but because the community has changed since COVID especially, and what the community needs. But we do not want to lose our sense of self or identity. Ms. Alvarado, anything you would?
No, you said it.
Okay, yeah, great.
Everything we talked about, yes.
Thank you so much. Mr. Bullock, Mr. Weed, our work on fundraising and board development. Anything you'd like to share about the asset map or the board responsibilities?
I defer to my other colleagues on the.
I mean, as the engagement has gone, I think that we've got some really good ideas just around, particularly on the grant side, of what could be there in terms of grant writing. Ms. Alex did some really good work in terms of development of corporations. So I think if we utilize the asset map to figure out what we're currently doing, but then kind of expand into corporations that may be interested in more, one-time funds or sports or whatever kind of unique, or science. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. So I'm excited about the work, and I think Seth is doing a pretty good job as our engagement leader in the group. So I think we're heading in the right direction with all of our teams. It looks like.
Ms. Alice, anything you would add on?
No, I mean, I just reiterate that I think we've done really good work. I know for myself, this was not anything I really have ever done or have tried to do, so it's been nice to work in something completely different and yeah, I think we have like a really strong list of organizations, people to kind of help us, and I think once we can, solidify like what our like sponsorship levels and things look like in that communication to these partners that are dying to work with us, but we just don't have these next steps ironed out. So I think we're in a really, really good place to be able to like start getting ourselves out there and start to build those connections with people. So we're in a good place.
Ms. Bunka, do you want to extend off of it's really an extension of the marketing plan presentation, but.
I don't think I have really anything
Okay.
to add. I mean, overall, our work is on recruitment and engagement. We know why that is critical and important. And we are creating some aggressive timelines considering we're coming up to a new school year. So we are creating a document that we'll eventually share with everyone that will show all of the work that we're engaging in.
And I would just highlight and thank in advance so that she cannot change her mind. Ms. Boone Campbell for working on that document, but also for supporting with the onboarding of the new position that we are recruiting for on recruitment. And in the development of that cohesive social media strategy piece. So I'm really leveraging Ms. Booncamp's brilliance and expertise as we fly this position by tomorrow and get that going. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. It's a team effort for sure. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
All right, we'll adjourn the closed session. Thank you. everyone.
Thank you.
A lot.
Yeah, the window is
Nicole, are we
we're back to our open session and reporting back from a closed session. There are two actions. The first on the agenda, in terms of resolution 325-5, we're going to table that. And the second resolution that I want to entertain is the authorization of the executive director to act as negotiator and signer of a long-term lease with an LOI not to exceed annual rent of $200,000. So I will entertain a motion for that resolution.
Does this capture the portion on Sonos and
7 does.
7 days? Okay. I would motion to approve negotiated LOI for the site as proposed in 325-6.
And the importance of that resolution is to give the authorization to the executive director to act on our behalf. If I could get you to.
Oh, in accordance, yeah, I need to. In accordance to giving the authorization to the executive director to act on our behalf.
So second,
I second.
been moved and properly second, and we will do roll call.
All right, Chairman Bullock,
Yes.
Mr. Wheat,
Yes.
Ms. Booncat,
Yes.
Ms. Newburn,
Yes.
Ms. Alvarado,
Yes.
Resolution is passed. Thank you. And the second action we're taking out of closed session is the authorization authorize Franco Architects and Somos, a legal firm, to engage in the due diligence and reasonable work of the development of a private site facility. I will entertain a motion on that resolution.
I motion to approve the implementation of Franco Architects and Somos with the for engagement not to exceed $405,000 for Franco and $35,000 for Somos.
second.
Moved and properly second, and we will take the roll for the passing of this board resolution.
Thank you, Chairman Bullock,
Yes.
Mr. Wheat,
Yes.
Ms. Booncat,
Yes.
Ms. Newburn,
Yes.
Ms. Alvarado,
Yes.
Okay, resolution is passed. Thank you, everyone, for your participation and the work that we have ahead. And I will entertain a motion now to adjourn the meeting.
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Well, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good call.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Yes.